This video is highlighting how to re-terminate the Pathfinder system. Okay, this is the equipment that you'll need for the re-termination effort. Wrenches, 3/16 and 17 millimeter, pinchers, wire cutters, soldering material, small, I think it's a 0.2 head screwdriver, multimeter. You need this to clean off your soldering device. Your soldering gun. Here's your soldering gun that you need. You'll need 3 different types of sheathing. Sometimes they vary depending on what company you own them from, but this is a 1.5 millimeter, 1/16 inch. This one is a 3/32 inch. And also in this box, we'll need this bigger portion, which is 3/16 inch. Okay, you only need a very little bit of that. You'll need these to hold everything still. You'll need this to run your wire up if it's useful to you, to hold your wire in place. And you will also need that device too. The first step is you're going to go ahead and take this lever right here and push it in so that you can pull the reel out freely, but make sure you don't pull out too fast, or when you stop pulling, the reel will continue to spin and it will spool. Okay, prior to cutting the cable off, I'm going to go ahead and dismantle this device. I'll start here with this apparatus. I'm going to slide this down. In order to do that, I need to take the set screws out. So I'm going to take an Allen wrench and unscrew those set screws until this will slide freely. I'll go ahead and slide that up the cable. The next step is to take this off. I'm going to put one wrench right here using the 13/16, and then my other wrench, I'm using the 17 millimeter in this case, and I'm going to first unscrew this bottom bracket. Once you break it loose, you might be able to do it with your hands. Sometimes they're a little tight and you got to use the wrench the whole time. Okay, I'm gonna slide that down. Once I get that undone, then I will take off the next bracket, which is right above it. Same size, 17 millimeter wrench. Then I can slide that down the cable. You notice there'll be a white piece in here. You want to make sure that that is still intact. Okay, now that I've slid those components further up the wire, I am going to go ahead and remove this piece prior to cutting the wire. So I'll just use this cover, and it slides on there a very specific way. There's a notch, you line those notches up, slides on there, and all that's doing is giving me some leverage so that I can break the component free. Just takes one twist. After that one twist, I should be able to just unscrew it with my hands. Same thing, I'm going to slide that upstream of the wire. Hey, now I'm going to take this bracket off. Sometimes these brackets have Allen wrenches, and sometimes they have regular screwdriver. In this case, it's a regular screwdriver. Be very careful not to strip these screws. It's very easy to do. Okay, once I've got that undone, I'm going to put it back together, only barely, only because I don't want to lose these screws. I just put them in, 1 or 2 screws in, just to make sure the bracket is there when I am ready for it. I put it in this metal pan. However, make sure you keep that in front of you because you don't want to forget to put that bracket back on when you're done. Now that we've got everything undone, we're now ready to actually cut this wire. And again, it's around 2 feet up. I'll look for markings to make sure I'm cutting above. You can see right here, the wire was kind of pinched. I'll look for markings and make sure I'm cutting above where the wire seems to have been pinched. Pretty straightforward. We're just going to go ahead and use the wire cutters and snip it. Okay, and then we're also going to cut another piece about 2 inches long, 2.5 inches long up here, and I will show you shortly what that's for. Okay, the next step in the process is to put this on. I want it to go this way. Sometimes this can be difficult to get on. If it is, you might want to cut the wire up a little bit further. It seems like when that wire is getting really beat up, it starts to expand, and then it's difficult to slide this on. But it should go on there and just slide right up the wire. You can just slide upstream, get it out of the way. The next step is to open this. The next step is to open this wire up. You know, it looks like I cut it maybe a little too short. I'm just going to cut it a little bit longer. So it looks like we're looking about 3 thumb lengths, closer to 3 inches. Yeah, that looks better. All I'm going to do is take my razor and just cut a line down so that I can open this up. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is pinch this off, pull this off, and I'm going to pull out the white and the black lines. The rest are garbage. Go ahead and strip these wires. I just use the 32 portion stripper. There we go. Strip that line. Make sure it's still tight. I'm going to strip both ends. Same thing for the white one. Okay, we'll put those on the side for later. My next step, I'm gonna cut about 2 inches back, so essentially 2 thumb lengths back, right about there. I need to expose the wires, so I'm just gonna take my splicer here and not cutting. I'm just cutting I'm just getting the rubber exposed. You can see I have the rubber exposed now all the way around. Grab my razor again. Same process as we just did. I'm going to do it to expose these wires. That off. Now I need to cut away this material. Here's what I found works pretty effective for that, is I'll just pull this material tight, take my razor and just cut a little bit, pull it down with my thumb, see what all got cut, and do it again. So you see how I got that part cut. Do it again here. So I do it cut into the rubber just a little bit, but not more, barely at all, just enough to nick that cloth covering. Try to show you exactly what I'm doing here. Just enough to nick that cloth covering. Almost done. There we go. You can see I cut off and I just slide it right off. Okay, now our next step is to just separate all these wires. You can see they're just a little bit longer than I'd like them to be. I would probably prefer them to be just under 2 inches. A good measurement is I'll take this razor and I want it about 1 1/4 razors long. So I'm going to trim off just a little bit of the wires here. If you don't do this, you have too much wires to work with when you're trying to re-terminate everything. So as you can see, these wires are about 1 1/4 length of the razor. Okay, the next step is to separate these wires so I can get at each one of them individually. And I'm simply going to go ahead and strip each wire using the 32 stripper. There we go. So you can see how far up I stripped those wires, about 1/4 of a razor blade length. Okay, once they're all stripped, I'll just go through and twist them to make sure that they are together and not all frayed. Separating them all, now I need to do the same thing for this center wire. I don't need that much wire, so I'm going to cut it down to about halfway. Okay, and now I'm going to follow the same procedure as before to expose this wire. Be very, very gentle when you cut through this because you don't want to cut the shield wire that's underneath. It's a very, very light touch. You can always recut if you haven't cut deep enough. So err on the side of a light cut. Okay. So once I do that light cut, and I'm going to see if I cut deep enough to separate it. It looks like I need to cut a little bit deeper. Yep, I need to cut just a little bit deeper to separate it. Let's try this again. There we go. Got that black shield off, so I'll kind of pull it down. Once I get it pulled down, I'm gonna go ahead and use my, trying to do this so you can see, I'm gonna use my razor to separate it all the way. There we go, really light cut. So now I've got that center wire exposed. I need to get inside this wire now. So what I'll do is I'll push this down a little bit, and as you can see, it opens up like a little hole in that wire by just pushing it down a little bit. See how it opened a hole up a little bit? Well, now what I'm going to do is try to get that white wire out. Okay, here's the method I use, is try to use this to fish it out. Trying to do this with one hand so that you can see, so it is a little difficult. Okay, once I've got it pinched, I just kind of rotate it out. You can see how I've just rotated it out a little bit. kind of slow because I'm trying to keep it on camera. It's a lot easier if you aren't trying to film it. Okay, once I've got it rotated out, now just take this wire. Okay, so my next step is to expose the white wire. This wire is very fragile, so be very, very gentle when you do this wire. It is. Got it. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to kind of want to clean all this up. See, all these wires are kind of all frayed. I'm going to want to go ahead and just use my hands to straighten them all out. Make it nice and neat so that I'm cutting them. Or I'm soldering them, it's easier work with them. My wires are all separated, ready for the soldering step. For this portion, you're going to need this guy right here. You're going to need a soldering device and a soldering gun. Soldering gun should be set at 750. Okay, you can see I have my device set up. The two wires, you can see I kind of pinched them in there to hold them. And this guy, everything's separated, so it's easy to get at. So we'll start with these two wires. Okay, so all I do really is kind of set the wire right on there, and I heat it up. And all I'm doing is just trying to coat that wire in material. Doing both ends of both the black and white wire. Okay, and when you're done, you need to make sure that you're consistently getting rid of the extra stuff on the wire, or your soldering tip will stop working very quickly. So all I do is I jam it in there, kind of squeeze it and twist it. It's good. Okay, in between solders, I'll put it in here and I'll turn the soldering gum off when I'm not using it so I don't burn it out. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here now that we just did, but for every single wire. Okay, the last solder, I'm trying to coat these wires. I'm going to pinch them off just a little bit because they're a little too long. This guy is a little tricky to cut. There we go. Okay, that's about the length I like them. The same thing here, just solder these wires. The more compact you can get this shield, the easier it will be to solder later when you connect it. All I'm doing is trying to put a layer of solder on these. Okay, the next step is to fill the pin 12-point connector with solder. So all I do there is I just kind of set the solder in, and I touch the top of it and let it melt in. The little ones, you don't want too full or it makes a mess. The big ones, you want full enough or you have difficulty soldering down the line. Okay, we're ready now. These two guys are soldered. All those ends are covered. And the pin connector, it's so small. There we go, now you can see. Okay, for the next step, I'm gonna solder these two wires together. And here's all I do is I just connect, it goes white to white. And I just set the soldering gun underneath it. Set the wires together, solder it. Once I see them melting, then I'll just let go with the gun, but try keep the wires together, shoot, until they melt together. That took a little bit longer than it usually does just because I'm trying to keep you inside the camera. Same thing with the black one. Always be careful not to burn any other wires while you're doing this. So you gotta kind of clear up what you want. You can see, I set the wires together. Let it heat up. As soon as it heats up, they'll fuse. I let the gun let them dry together. Okay, they're fused. Give it a tug. They both feel really secure. Tug them both. They're both secure. We're going to be using this form right here. Okay. We're going to match them from line to line. So for example, if I want to solder A, I'm going to look at here and follow across, and I see that's a white line. Now there are two white lines. Okay, this white and this black line, they're referencing these two add-on solders that we did, these two pigtails. Okay, there are two other white and blacks. There's a black right here. Okay, and that belongs to D. And there is a white way down here, belongs here. That white and black are part of this right here. Okay, solder in a pattern that makes it easiest to adjust to reach everything. So I will solder F first, then I will solder I can't see him here with the camera. Then I will solder E, then I will solder D. You can see the number.
Solder from bottom left to top right. To allow your soldering gun the angle required to not burn wires already soldered.
What I'm trying to do is keep my soldering gun, if you're left-handed it'd be different, so I always have access so I don't burn other wires. That's why I solder these first, and then these, and then these, and then these. That's the pattern that you will see. So F first, right? So I will simply look over here at the sheet. I will find F. Let's see, it's label number 6. I'll run it across and I'll see I have to solder green first. Okay. The first step in soldering is you need to place shields on, okay? So most of our shielding, we will use the 1 1/16 inch. However, there is a portion where we will use our larger 3/32, and there is even one where we will use is 3/16, our largest one. Okay, so the first step, I cut a strand of this off. This is the smallest one. Key here is setting up how you like it. This F1 first, and I use my sheet, and I know that found F belongs to green, the green wire. So I find my green wire. We'll rotate this to make my life easier to where I want it. Rotate it just a little bit more. Okay, first thing I do is I am going to cut off some shield. For the shield, it really doesn't need to be a whole lot longer than the exposed metal wire. That's how I'll measure it. You want it a little bit longer, but not too much. If it's too long, it makes it harder to put everything back together. Okay, I'll slide that upstream of the wire. And I'll go ahead and I'll pinch the wire with my pinchers. Once I've got it pinched, remember I'm soldering into F bracket, and F bracket belongs to the green wire. So I'm going to set it in the F bracket. I'm going to see if I can get you good visibility of this. Okay, so I've got it set in F, and you just want to pay attention to your gun to make sure you don't hit other wires on the way, or you'll wreck your other wires. All I do is I set on top. As soon as I see smoke, it's already soldered in. Let it dry for a moment. Give it a little tug to make sure it's nice and steady. And then I slide my gun down, my sheathing down, good to go. Just make sure that there's no metal wire exposed above here, which means you cut your sheathing too short. If that happens, pull your sheathing back up, set your soldering gun on here, pull the wire off, cut new sheathing off, and then put it back on. I'm gonna do E next. Right here, I followed across as orange. E is orange. I got my orange wire. That looks better. Slide it upstream of orange. I don't want to leave any extra soldering on here, so I'll clean my gun. Okay, I let it dry, gave it a tug, feels secure. Slide my sheathing down. My sheathing is not sliding down on this one because my solder was just a little bit too big. There was too much excess left. So I'm going to try to nick it down. See, that's enough. Don't slide the sheathing down before it dries, or you'll melt the sheathing. Once it dries, I can try to slide it down again. There we go. It went over that time. Okay, good. So now remember, I'm gonna go up here, and then here, and then here. Okay. So now I'm going to M. M is a larger one, so I'm going to use my larger box or reel here. It is size 332. Cut some sheathing off. The reason I'm using a larger one is because this pin is bigger, and the smaller 1/16 inch won't fit over it. Sometimes you have to snake these wires through in a way that makes the most sense to get yourself as much room as possible. So I kind of had to snake the wire through. Slide that sheath up. Put it in there. It's ready. Solder it. There we go. See a little puff of smoke. It means to heat up enough. You'll feel the wire sink right in. Letting it dry. Give it a little tug. Secure. So now I slide my sheath on. Okay, now I'm going to be quiet and just work quickly. I'm going to solder D next, then L. Then I'm going to come up here to C, and then to J. Or sorry, I'm going to come up here to G, then to J, then to L, then to C, then to K, then to H, then to A, then to B. Okay, I'm at the end. My last two wires. We need to code these first before we solder them. So what I will do is I will measure the proper length, and I just want to make sure that it will cover this whole wire. So we don't want any wire exposed or it will short out. That will cover it. So I'm going to slide this wire all the way down. You can see it'll there. So see, now that wire is going to be covered. It looks like it's a little bit long. We don't want it any longer than we need it to be. I'm just going to trim it down just a ton, or just a tad. Slide it back down. Covers the whole wire, nothing's exposed. The black wire, I'm going to have to use the larger wire for because it won't fit otherwise. That's the 332 version. So I'm going to look at it. I'm going to trim that down just a little bit. It looks like it should work. Slide that wire on. Cover as much of it as I can. So now I'm going to turn my gun on. It's this right knob right here. Flip it on. When I take it off, it'll start to heat up. So it's, you can see it's going to work up till it hits the 400. Wire around so it shrinks on. All we're doing is we're sealing that so that it doesn't leak anywhere. Okay, that's all sealed. Now I'm going to need, this is the only time I'm going to use this size wire. It's the third one from the left on this box. Just 3/16. Cover that wire. So what I want here, I'm going to cut it down. I just need to cover the bottom portion. It's on both the white and black wire. What I'm trying to do is slide it down as far as I can so that it covers any wire that's exposed at the base, and it kind of holds those two together. There we go. So I take my gun now and just melt that top one. There we go. Turn my gun off. Now I'm ready to solder my last two wires. Okay, I'm going to solder, I like to solder B first. B, again, look at my white sheet. I follow B across, and it is black. It's the shield black. So it's this wire right here. Cut it off, make sure it's the right length. Looks like the right length. You can see how that solder got a little bit sloppy. I'm gonna have to re-solder it, re-melt that if I can't pinch it down. Well, looks like I can pinch it down, so it's okay. Take our shield, slide it upstream. We're soldering B, which is black. Okay. There we go. That one's good. I'm not going to slide the shield down yet until I'm done with white. Okay, slide the white shield up. Okay, it's set. Give it a tug, make sure it's snug. Usually these are the first two wires that go bad, so you gotta make sure you do them well. Slide the shields down. Okay, there we go. I am not gonna shrink wrap these yet, and I'll show you why in a minute. My next step is to continuity test these wires. All right, so I'm going to need this sheet right here. for a continuity test, and I'm also going to need my multimeter. Okay, now we're going to multimeter test. I'm going to take our multimeter, make sure that it is plugged into there, red and black, right? I'm going to take my dial and I'm going to turn it to that symbol right there. The first step I'm going to do is take my 2 wires, connect them. Got a beep, good. Okay, now we're going to start a continuity test. Now remember, you just got done doing this. It's not, you have to be very careful with this so you don't undo any of your wires or damage anything. But here, essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to be looking at this sheet. Okay, this column right here represents the 12-point connector pin, this guy, okay? And this column here represents that connector pin on the reel. So my first step is I will look here. I see A is going on my connector pin, and I see A on the reel. So what I'm going to do, because I have, you only have 2 hands, I'll take my pin, I'll look for A on here. I find A, I'll slide it in, okay, and I'll just kind of hold it gently like this. Not jamming it in there, just hold it in there. All it needs is some connectivity. And with my other hand, I am going to slide it into that A right there, the top one of the 12 o'clock of the screen. Okay, now A is different in that we won't get a tone for A. We'll get a tone for all the other ones, but not for A. So once I connect them, you say I got a reading of 89. That's a pretty good reading. It can be down to 72. It depends how long the reel is. This reel is probably a little shorter, so it's able to push more electricity through, so you get a higher reading. But 89 is a good reading. I think anything under 60 might be problematic. So A is good. Next, I'm going to look at my sheet, and I'm going to go down the line. Now I'm going to do B. Okay, so I find B on my reel, or on my connector pin. All right, once I find B, just going to hold it with my hand like that so it stays in there. And then I'm going to find B on my blue pin. Okay, you can see that it is just under A, so basically at my 11 o'clock. Now, all the rest of them I should get a beep, so I don't even need to look at my multimeter, though I can. But as soon as I slide it in, I hear a tone. We're good. Hey, if you ever don't hear a tone, you're going to have to redo your re-termination, and that is why we don't seal this up yet, because if we have a tone, let's say we had a bad tone on white, well, I would take this white apart and just resolder white and then try it to get that tone again, because these parts cost money and it takes a lot of time. So we're going to go through. I'm just going to follow the sheet. What I do want to point out that is eventually, at first it starts A to A, B to B, C to C, D to D, and then it goes E to E and F to F. But at G it switches. So you will do G on here, but on the reel you won't do G. You'll actually do K. So I'm on G on here, but then when I look on here, instead of putting it into G, I am looking for K, which, this will be easier to see in person than on the camera, but K is right there. If you ever don't get a tone, recheck your numbers and make sure you're not getting confused, because sometimes it can be confusing. Does N go with this one or this one or this one? Well, N goes here. But make sure you double check there if you ever don't get a tone. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to work through all that. Remember, I won't get a tone on A, but I should get a reading on here. All the rest I should get a tone on. Okay, I finished continuity testing. I'm going to leave this device here by the reel because I will need to come back. Now that I know everything was successfully soldered, we have good connectivity on everything. I'm gonna melt all these shields down. So what I want to do is make sure that all the shields are slid all the way down before I start melting them. Okay, now I'm gonna go through and melt the bottoms first. You can see I'm just kind of working my way around the whole side. On the bottoms, working my way around on the outside. Now I'm gonna melt the tops. And then I'm gonna try to hit those inside ones that are kind of difficult to reach, and they're bigger. The big ones melt slower than the narrow ones. Okay. Tighten this top guy up a little bit. There. I'm gonna slide this bracket up to the base. Just want it flush like that, and I'll take the pliers and I will pinch it down. Now this is what holds everything onto the cord, so you do want to pitch it down tight, but don't pinch it down so tight that you wreck the cable too, you know. There's no like foot-pound pressures indicator, but I put it on there and give it a really solid tug. I don't see any movement at all. You can see how there is some gap in there, so it's not pinched down so tight that it's wrecking that cord in between, which I think we have done before. This is the easiest part to forget. You want to put this guy back on. Okay, so I pull them out, unscrew my screws. Just wipe these screws back in so I don't lose them. See if it comes undone, so we go. Okay, once I get these screws undone, I'm going to put this bracket back together. Right there. Tighten it back up. Now, these screws, do not over tighten them because you'll strip them. And once they're stripped, it's almost impossible to get them out. And then we lose this device and got to buy a new one, this mounting bracket. So screw them in, kind of like a tire opposite sides, which I can do there. But don't wrench them down, right? Just screw them in. So you can see this screw is going a little tough. And you want to make sure you don't strip these screws. So you're going to have to put plenty of weight down, plenty of pressure to make sure you're not stripping the screws. It won't be completely closed. There will be a gap there. See how there's still a gap? So don't strip those screws out trying to close that gap. That gap won't close. It's not meant to. And there we go. See, I don't have any wiggle in there. There is a gap on both sides, right? But there's no wiggle. It's not going anywhere. This is probably the trickiest part, as this is your highest probability of when you would wreck those wires, okay? So when we put it on, we're going to screw the bottom part this way. So I like to orient my wires in a way that it doesn't mess with them when it's spinning like that. Okay, so we'll put it in here. And what we're trying to do, one more piece. Every time we do a re-term, we should change this plastic piece. Okay, so I already did it, but you'll use this to pop it out. And every kit should come with a new rubber seal. And you'll just slide that rubber seal back in there, okay? So now we've got that rubber piece changed. Now we're gonna slide this in here, and what I'm trying to do is, without pinching the wires, set this bracket in there nice and even. And I'm spinning the metal bracket, not the top, because if I spin the top, I'll twist those wires. Okay, so I got it in there, and now I'm just gonna hand tighten it down. All the way. Once I get all the way, hand tighten down. Now I can use this device. Okay, we're gonna line it up, and it only goes in one way. See that big bracket right there? It's gotta match that big bracket. Don't force it, should slide right in. Now don't crank this down, it doesn't need to be cranked down. Just that last little twist just to make sure that it's not going anywhere. I don't use the wrench to tighten this, okay? That's tight enough. Otherwise we could bend these metal pieces in here and then it won't fit on the camera. So I've got to slide all of these components back upstream. Maybe slow them downstream to get them out of the way. Okay, so I first slide this component up, hand tighten it on. You may need a wrench to get on, but that one went on pretty good. And get this white piece back in there. Okay, and then one more component to slide up. Sometimes this can be tricky to slide on. Just kind of screw it on. Sometimes you can hand tighten them to a certain point. Sometimes you got to use the wrench. Remember, it says 13/16 on top. This one's 17 millimeter. I'll go ahead and tighten it. If you want this tight, don't be afraid to tighten this. Oops. And I'll take the top bracket too. Should all tighten at the same time just to make sure. There we go. I'm putting this bracket back up, slide it up. So these are those set screws, right? So once we slide it up, we're gonna use the set screws. We do not tighten this one in our correction, this one, right? I'm sorry, this one. We do not tighten that one. That one's for the operators to tighten. Let me find my right. We instead tighten all these larger ones, right? Okay, so what we're trying to do, if you can see in there, is all we're doing is just dropping it barely in enough. So now, see, this thing won't slide down anymore. But it's not so far in there that it blocks the rubber piece. So just a little bit of set screw in there. And that's all we need. Do that to all four. Again, just barely enough in there so that it doesn't slide off when the operators are taking it off and on. If you put it too much, it'll block it, and that rubber seal won't be good, and they won't be able to get their camera on. Okay, there we go. Those set screws are all set. And remember, this guy right by the on, we don't touch him, and our Allen wrench won't even fit in there anyway. And here's the last piece. I don't ever even take this off. We're not going to tighten this. You tighten it just enough so that it doesn't slide off. Now, if you took this off, don't forget to put it back on. Otherwise, the operators will get up there and they will try to assemble their camera, and they won't be able to without this piece, put the pigtail on. So I leave it loose so that they can put it where they want it, because they'll have to set it themselves. But I make sure the screws are tight enough where it's not going to fall off when I'm walking around, or we're not going to lose any screws. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and continuity test this thing again. We continuity test this one more time. The reason being is that when we screwed this bracket on, there's a possibility that we messed up a soldering device. So same process. I have my sheet. Right here. I follow this side for the connector pin, and I follow this side for pin on here. And remember, the top ones, A to B, A to A, B to B, C to C, D to D, E to E, F to F. But then when we get to G, it starts changing. It goes G to K, H to L, J to L, K to M, L to N, M to K. The first one, when you're doing A, you are not going to get a tone. You're only going to get a reading. Okay? But all the rest of them, you should get a tone. But now I'm going to do A to A, A to A. There, I got a read of 89.6, so we're good there. And I'm going to just keep going down the line, and now I should be able to hear a tone on everyone. Now I'm doing B to B, hear a tone. Okay, I'm going to continue that until I get to the end. Okay, we are complete. We retested the reel, and continuity test proved good there. So now we need to clean up. Every time you're done, make sure you wipe your desk, okay? See, wiped all that up. I'm going to put that in the garbage can. You also need to sweep the floor. I have not swept yet. I'm about to. But when we're done, I want to see a clean counter, clean floor, right? All the equipment put back in. Everything that deals with soldering goes here. Every tool set that we use consistently goes here. Spare random tools can go over here. All the Aries equipment goes in this box, and all the Envirosite equipment goes in this box. We will improve these. Right now they're just cardboard boxes. We'll get some tool chests for them. Please put everything back. It makes it easier to see, right? So we used devices from here. Anytime you use something, check the inventory. We always want enough inventory on hand to do at least 2 re-terminations. So if you look at your inventory, and this will be easier once we have boxes set up, right, and everything labeled. But in this case, I'm looking here, right? So I need another one of these connectors. So I'm gonna go ahead and order more. I always order 3 at a time, okay? And make sure you ask, not for the whole re-termination kit, just for this metal piece right here, the pinchered piece, the metal connector, and the rubber seal. That's all we need. Order a set of 3. Terry knows how to do that. You can see here's a packing slip. We only ordered 2. We should have ordered 3 for the last order. Okay, and then finally I'm going to reel this reel up. Remember, you got to have this thing pushed in order for it to reel on its own. And I'm simply just going to reel it up with my hand until it's all the way back. Okay, once you got it reeled back, let's set our cable up. Again, make sure you minimize bends in the cable. Put this piece in there. And then we will use our dolly to go ahead and bring it back to the shop. This is what the room looks like when we're complete. Floor is swept, clean. Counter is wiped down, clean. All the items are put away back where they belong. They shouldn't be there. And finally, the last step is make sure you turn the power off. First, make sure the gun is off. Sometimes people leave that on and it kills it. And then make sure you turn the power off to the whole station. That completes our re-termination video.